Welcome to Spiritual and Self-Care Sunday with Coach Kwanz. Each week we explore timeless principles that nurture faith, strengthen well-being, and encourage a healthier, more purposeful life. Today's reflection is called Fruit Was Never Meant to Stop With You. There is something remarkable about a fruit tree. It spends much of its life receiving. Its roots draw water from the soil. Its leaves receive sunlight. The earth provides nutrients. Rain falls. The seasons change. And quietly, almost invisibly, the tree takes in what it needs to grow. But eventually something changes. What the tree has been receiving begins to become something it can give. Fruit appears, and the tree doesn't consume that fruit itself. Someone else does. A person, a bird, an animal. And inside that fruit is something even more remarkable, a seed. The potential for what began in one tree to continue somewhere else. Perhaps there is a beautiful lesson for our own lives hidden inside that picture. Over the past several weeks, we've been following the journey of growth. We began with seeds. We reflected on waiting. We explored stillness. Then we looked beneath the surface at roots. And last week, we considered the fruit. But perhaps fruit isn't actually the end of the story. Perhaps mature growth eventually asks another question. Who benefits from what is growing in me? Galatians chapter 5, verses 22 to 23 gives us a beautiful picture of spiritual fruit. It speaks of love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Consider those qualities for a moment. They develop within a person, but almost every one of them becomes meaningful in relationship with somebody else. Patience grows within you, but somebody else experiences your patience. Kindness develops within you, but somebody else receives your kindness. Gentleness becomes part of your character, but somebody else experiences what it feels like to be treated gently. Self-control develops within you, but its consequences may be felt in your home, your health, your finances, your workplace, and your relationships. Peace may grow within your heart, but eventually you may become the calm presence in a room where everyone else feels overwhelmed. The fruit grows within us, but the blessing often reaches beyond us. And perhaps this gives us an interesting way to think about self-care. The phrase self-care can sometimes sound entirely inward-looking. My health, my rest, my well-being, my needs, and there's nothing wrong with recognizing those things. Your well-being matters, your body matters, rest matters, health matters. You do not need to justify caring for yourself simply because somebody else may benefit from it. But there is another beautiful dimension to self-care that we sometimes overlook. What strengthens us can increase our capacity to serve. Think about sleep. Sleep is something we receive, we rest, the body recovers, the mind processes the day, energy is restored. But the consequences of adequate rest may extend beyond the person sleeping. Perhaps the following morning, you have more patience with your children. Perhaps you think more clearly at work. Perhaps you respond more calmly when something goes wrong. Perhaps you have enough energy to listen properly when someone needs you. Rest happened within you, but somebody else may experience its fruit. Think about nourishing food. The meal is eaten by you. The nutrients nourish your body. But better health may help you remain active in the lives of the people you love. Think about movement. You walk, you train, you strengthen your muscles, you support your cardiovascular health. Those adaptations happen within your body. But perhaps maintaining your strength allows you to remain independent for longer. Perhaps it enables you to play with your children or grandchildren. Perhaps it gives you the physical capacity to help somebody else. Again, the benefit begins within you, but it doesn't necessarily end there. Even stress management can work this way. When we learn to pause, to breathe, to pray, to reflect before reacting, to recognize when we need rest, we aren't simply changing our own internal state. We may also change what we bring into our homes and workplaces. Stress can travel, but so can calm. Frustration can travel, but so can patience. Fear can travel, but so can reassurance. Our internal world has a way of entering the spaces we share with other people. That doesn't mean we must always be calm. It doesn't mean we should hide difficult emotions. And it certainly doesn't mean we must become responsible for everybody else's well-being. It simply reminds us that what we cultivate within ourselves often has consequences beyond ourselves. This is where the picture of the tree becomes especially meaningful. Imagine looking at a fruit tree and accusing it of selfishness because it spends so much time receiving water. That wouldn't make sense. Without water, there is no fruit. Without sunlight, there is no fruit. Without nutrients, there is no fruit. Without healthy roots, eventually there is no healthy tree. Receiving nourishment is not the opposite of giving. Receiving nourishment is part of what makes giving possible. Perhaps some of us need to remember that there are seasons when rest is necessary. There are seasons when recovery is necessary. There are moments when saying no is necessary. There are times when protecting sleep, preparing nourishing food, exercising, seeking support, or simply becoming quiet before God is not selfish. It is stewardship. We cannot continuously pour from resources we never replenish. Even Jesus withdrew from crowds at times. Luke chapter 5 verse 16 tells us that Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. There were people who needed him. There was work to be done, yet withdrawal and prayer were still part of his rhythm. That is worth noticing. Rest and service do not have to be enemies. Stillness and usefulness do not have to compete. Sometimes stepping away temporarily is part of returning with greater presence. And spiritually, the same principle continues. Prayer happens privately, but its fruit may become visible publicly. Scripture may be read quietly, but its wisdom may shape a decision that affects many people. Gratitude develops internally, but it can change the atmosphere we create around ourselves. Forgiveness may begin as a deeply personal spiritual process, but its fruit may eventually change the way we speak and respond. God works in hidden places, and eventually, hidden formation becomes visible fruit. This also gives us a different perspective on personal growth. We sometimes approach growth as though the ultimate goal is to create an improved version of ourselves. Stronger, healthier, more disciplined, more successful, more knowledgeable. And those can all be worthwhile goals. But perhaps Christian growth eventually asks us to look beyond ourselves. Not only how much have I grown, but what is my growth producing? Is greater knowledge making me more helpful? Is greater strength making me more able to serve? Is greater success making me more generous? Is greater faith making me more hopeful? Is greater wisdom making me more patient? Is better health giving me greater capacity to participate in the lives of people I love? Growth that ends only with ourselves may be incomplete. The fruit was never meant to stop with the tree. And there is another detail about fruit that I find beautiful. Fruit carries seed. That means the blessing can continue beyond the immediate moment. Perhaps you've experienced this yourself. Someone encouraged you years ago. They may have forgotten the conversation completely, but you still remember it. Someone believed in you when you were uncertain. Someone taught you something that changed the direction of your life. Someone showed kindness during a difficult season. Someone prayed for you. Someone modeled discipline. Someone demonstrated faith. The fruit of their life became a seed in yours, and perhaps something growing in your life today will become a seed in somebody else's tomorrow. You may never know. Your children may remember something you consistently modeled. A colleague may remember how you treated them during a difficult period. Someone watching your health journey may quietly decide to begin taking better care of themselves. A person struggling spiritually may remember something you said about faith. A small act of kindness may travel much further than you ever see. That is one of the humbling things about fruit. The tree doesn't control where every seed goes. It simply keeps producing. Perhaps we don't need to know the full impact of everything we do either. We simply keep tending what God has entrusted to us, our bodies, our minds, our character, our faith, our relationships, our responsibilities. We nourish the roots, we remain connected to the source. We allow God to continue his work within us, and then we let the fruit speak. So perhaps there are two questions worth carrying with us this week. The first is, what am I receiving that genuinely nourishes me? Not merely distracts me, not simply occupies me, but nourishes me. Rest, prayer, scripture, healthy food, movement, meaningful relationships, quiet reflection, time with God. And then the second question, what is growing within me that could become nourishment for somebody else? Perhaps patience, perhaps encouragement, perhaps knowledge, perhaps generosity, perhaps strength, perhaps kindness, perhaps simply your presence. You don't need to produce everything. A tree doesn't produce every kind of fruit. It simply produces according to what it has been created to bear. Perhaps that is enough for us too. We don't have to become everything to everyone. We simply need to faithfully steward what God has placed within our hands and allow the good that grows within us to travel where it can. As we bring this reflection to a close, perhaps we can now see the whole journey differently. The seed mattered, the waiting mattered, the stillness mattered, the roots mattered, the nourishment mattered, and the fruit matters. but the fruit was never meant to stop with the tree. What God develops within us can become a blessing beyond us. So keep tending the roots, keep nourishing your body, keep protecting appropriate rest, keep strengthening your faith, keep cultivating love, keep practicing patience, keep choosing kindness, keep growing in self-control, and don't underestimate what God may do through the quiet fruit of a life faithfully tended. You may never see every person it nourishes. You may never know where every seed lands. But perhaps that was never ours to control. Our responsibility is simply to keep growing faithfully where God has planted us. Thank you for joining me for this week's Spiritual and Self-Care Sunday with Coach Kwanz. May God nourish what is good within you, strengthen you when you need strength, give you wisdom to care for what He has entrusted to you, and allow the fruit of your life to become a blessing wherever He has planted you. Until next time, take care and God bless.